And speaking of child exploitation, Roman Polanski is officially a free man. The 76-year-old Oscar-winning film director will not be turned over to U.S. authorities after pleading guilty to having unlawful sex with a 13-year-old decades ago. Now, it seems sometimes that these sick headlines flood our TV screens, newspapers, and magazines, but the question is, why? And what should the punishment be for those who take advantage of minors? Advice columnist Diane Falzone joins me from New York for more. Diane, first of all, what do you think of the Roman Polanski news? Why did the Swiss government decide to let him go?
It is so confusing, I think, from an American point of view. We had the State Department representative, the spokesperson, come out today saying how extremely disappointed they were. And they said that there was a small mistake, that there was some small mistake that was holding Polanski from being extradited to the U.S. And he said, I'm sorry, this is not a technicality. Their spokesperson, Crowley, said, how can a technicality be a mistake when this man raped and sodomized a teenage girl? So I think the American point of view is extremely outraged, where the European point of view, they can't seem to separate Polanski from this great filmmaker from this horrible human being.
Well, why do you think that is? I mean, that's an interesting point that you make, because America, there are harsh laws here in America, but why is it different from Europe then? I mean, what is the disconnect there? This crime is obviously heinous, so what's the difference?
It is absolutely a heinous crime, and I think the difference is, you know, I was reading different editorials on the Polanski case today, and it seems that many people feel America is a puritanical society, that we uphold children to a higher moral standard, and they should not be touched, and they should be virginal, whereas in Europe they say that once they're teenagers, they should be sexual creatures. Now, I disagree with these editorials. I think that this really comes down to the moral fiber of individuals. And obviously, Polanski is lacking. This is a man who committed a crime, and for some reason, maybe it's power, fame, whatever it is, he is setting a terrible example. And what the LA District Attorney's Office has said is, what are we telling the rest of the world by saying you can get away with this kind of behavior?
Now, Diana, you know, we find these cults quite often, sometimes disguised by religion, sometimes culture. And, you know, we dig deeper and we find these grotesque acts against children. But why is it now sort of commonplace to see this happening?
I think it's becoming commonplace, and it actually made my stomach turn when you use the word commonplace and sex acts against minors, because this is absolutely a disgrace that we're not protecting our children. And it starts with cases like Roman Polanski. When we show the world that if you have enough money, enough power, if we turn the other cheek and say it's okay, we're letting even people who are not in socioeconomic powerful positions to do these things. That clip that you just showed with this psychologist who started a sex cult saying it was a self-help group, it absolutely is. It's disgusting and deplorable. And where are we? When are we going to be able to step in and set the record straight? And I think it would start with a case like Roman Polanski. And unfortunately, it was a loss today, not only for the LA Attorney's Office, but also for the tone that we're setting for the rest of the world.
Now, let's talk a little bit about punishment here, because like I said before, you know, there are strict laws here in the U.S. I mean, there are things like chemical castration for pedophiles and child molesters, but where do you draw that line here? I mean, what is a fair punishment and what isn't? And could the solution sometimes also, in this case, contribute to the problem?
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's hard to play God in any situation. However, I do recall having a conversation with a police officer, and he was telling me that in a prison situation, when it talks about the chain of command, if you believe that it does exist within the prison system, child molesters are the lowest of the low, even ranking below serial killers and rapists of adult women or men. So that just tells you where their place is. And I do think that if you have somebody who has a sickness, the chances of rehabilitation once they've already committed the crime, I think it's slim. And I don't want to say that that person should, you know, face the death penalty or anything that severe, but that individual needs a tremendous amount of help and needs to be away from children. It's just too close to comfort.
And it's interesting because sometimes some of these people are, you know, neighbors and family friends and things like that. But very briefly, what's it going to take to sort of change that chain of command, as you say?
I think it's going to take a lot of work. I think it happens by individual cases. I think we need a strong case where we make an example out of someone. The Polanski case would have made an example out of him, an example for other people thinking about doing it. Unfortunately, today was not the day. Hopefully in the future, we will have some victory when it comes to children and being sexual abuse victims.
Advice columnist Diana Falzone, always good to have you there in our New York studios.